I would like to begin with a poem in old-fashioned meter. Be good to us, and we'll be good to you.
Hello, welcome to the second installment of Failing at Self-Publishing, also known as Self-Publishing 101. I'm Taylor J. McBride, and this is my channel of Cynical Saints Publishing. Maybe you watched the first video, maybe you didn't. Either way, I'm going to show you guys a few free ways that you can create an ebook cover, but I'm also going to explain, as I did in the first video, why using the free routes, you may run the risk of making the mistake that I've made before, as everything I've learned came from making mistakes, that you should consider the audiobook and or paperback from the outset. So anyways, without further ado, here are some different ways to put into practice those specification rules we learned in the first video and actually start creating some covers. One way to make the book cover is Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark used to be an app. It was designed for making cool online posts. Now, it's a website. One of the many, many, many wonderful things that comes from Adobe. This one's a little bit different than Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Creative Cloud or Adobe Photoshop because it's 100% free. You just go to spark.adobe.com, sign in with your email address, create an Adobe ID, and it's all free. And then you get to log in. Now, you can actually make things for websites. You can make videos. This is an amazingly powerful tool. We're going to introduce ourselves to it right now by using the section for posts. Now, this is free. Great for memes, inspirational quotes, flyers. You know, this is how you can be a graphic designer even though you don't have any graphic design software or any skills. It's so easy, I can do it. All right, so we're going to go in here. And it already shows you in here all these images where it already has text styles, background images. It's all created for you. So they make it really easy. You just change the text to what you want to say. And they tell you, like for instance, Instagram wants a square. So they tell you this right here is made for Instagram. This is a Facebook ad, optimized size. So we're going to start from scratch. Type in the title to our book. So we're going to go with a poster. As you can see, it's going to create it for us here. It's a nice effect there. I like it. Just so you know, the reason why we selected poster and not portrait or tall or any of the other design pre-selected heights is because this particular height is 2,560 pixels tall divided by 1,655 pixels wide. So it has an aspect ratio of 1.546 or 155. It said that the optimal size is 1.6. But Amazon will accept a cover that is 1.5 or even 1.4, 1.45. I often use my covers at an aspect ratio of about 1.5. That's what I prefer, the look. But in this case, it's 1.55, and that's going to be just fine. It's going to be just fine. So as you can see here, we got the design. Now, it comes every day. They have some suggested designs, and you just click on them. Ooh, I actually like that one. So these are just some quick styles here, just with their, you know, all right. We'll go with this one. And you can go in here, you can add a border if you like. You can change the colors. There's all sorts of different ways to go about it. You know, and it makes it so easy to change. So we're going to go back to some of the suggested ones. I kind of like this one. So change the color palette easily. I actually like this one. There's a few things that the recover is required to have. It must contain the title, the complete subtitle, as well as the author's name. So we're going to type out the subtitle here. All right. And this is a perfect time for us to notice all the different options that we have over here for text. We can change the shape of the text, give it an outline. This is one of the cool effects. If you select this one, it creates the text on a box. So then if we come out here to opacity, it creates a box around and the letters. Here, let's change the font so we can see exactly how that works. So the letters are actually what's see-through. And everything else gets painted over. But we're going to go with... So you know what? I don't like this picture. Ooh, you know what? Can we go back? Let's replace it. Now this picture. Let's see if we can adjust it at all. Now, this is one option. Down here it says Adobe Spark. Remove. One good disease deserves another. Share your post. So that's one way to get rid of it. Another would be to sign up for an Adobe product. But as you can see, one of the great appeals of this is that you just get to have these images. This huge image library at your fingertips. All right. That's one option to make your cover. So we'll keep that there. And if we wanted it, we would just go to download and bring it down. Here's another option to make your cover. This is a website called Canva. Now, Canva is similar to Adobe Spark in that it's a great website that allows you to create free designs, and it pre-sizes them for different print projects as well as the most optimized pixel sizes for social media. So it's great for creating memes, which we'll talk about in another video. I prefer Adobe Spark. I'm very loyal to Adobe. I love Adobe as a company. I love them. I wish I would have brought stock in them. I actually own stock in a competitor known as Autodesk Incorporated, which is another good stock. But yeah, Adobe stock is just doing great things right now. So what I like about this is I can create custom dimensions. So rather than being tied to these options on Adobe Spark where I go and, you know, I have to pick one of these sizes. And even though we learned that this image that we created it does meet the requirements. It's an acceptable aspect ratio. It's an acceptable pixel amount. But as far as the dimensions go, it's close to what it says ideal dimensions are, but it's a little bit small. You know, for me, I like to have more pixels in there. I'm not really afraid that just because my file might be a little bigger, it might take a little longer to download. That's part of the fear, is that when we go to the page on a phone and whatnot, different covers might take longer to download. That's the only reason I can see for not using a bigger file, because I want the most high definition file. That's just the way that I work with my covers. I want them to look good. And also, I want to be working with large files because I'm planning on, if I publish a book, I want to keep my options as open as possible to create an audiobook cover. And audiobook covers cannot be anything less. This is the minimum amount. And they have for the ACX, there is no file restrictions for how large it can be. Audiobook covers only have minimum requirements. They don't really have maximum requirements. And people are going to be viewing the audiobook cover on a larger scale, and we're not going to cover it in the scope of these videos. But ultimately, I want to leave my options open to create a print book as well, which requires a very high resolution when people can see it up close. You don't want a pixelated book. That happened with my first book. I'll show a video of it. So, Canva allows me to say, okay, I want 3200 pixels wide, 4800 pixels tall, which is twice as big as the minimum requirements, and it's a perfect aspect ratio of 1.6. Canva is very similar. So we'll come in here. We'll choose this design here. So anyways, you get the idea. I'm not going to create it in here because I'm not going to use it. But these are two free bargain poor man's options. Now, you basically would have to create, let's say we made it in here. We could duplicate it. We can go in and edit this one. But it's going to be very hard to create an acceptable audiobook cover in here, especially since we're working off a duplicated version. We're going to have to change the sizes or even just start from scratch. A much better way to go about the creation of cover files. Adobe Illustrator. And here we have our first look at the actual cover of the book, which I created. You see the title is made to look a little bit like a pistol there. We have this little guy right here. And I'm not going to go into it, but this allowed me to create the audiobook version right here. I was able to create the exact size that I want, which is, in this case, 32 pixels by 48. Additionally, my book has what's known as a bleed, an extra 20 pixels. So the image that will be exported when I export the file is what's inside of this inner rectangle here. So this extra excess will not be exported, But that's just so that in no way, shape, or form am I ever worried about any little white, missized pixels. Now, this is actually something that only matters in the world of traditional publishing, that is in print. Like if you're making a flyer, if you create a bleed, you don't have to worry about the edges coming out white. So it actually doesn't really help anything in the world of ebooks. It's just habit for me. All right. Another thing that I love about this is, so let's say that, let's say I decide, oh, you know what? Actually, I know how to change the name. I'm going to put the word gun law in there. Or let's say, to further illustrate the silly and for dummies style of this book, I want to say with pictures. Or let's say, a year from now, something comes up and I want to add something that says Amazon bestseller right here or whatever. It's very easy for me to do that. And in self-publishing, it's not like traditional publishing where you put something in and then it goes through an editor and, it's 100% perfect every single time. Sometimes you continue to make edits. You continue to evolve. You decide to make a t-shirt out of your cover. So having a high resolution and very manipulatable. Is that a word? Manipulatable? Manipulatable. 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 Yes. So now you have a much more manageable file. Yeah, it's so spongy and obedient. So another thing Adobe Illustrator allows you to do is, this is the tags, the data behind the file. So I'm able to put that it has a copyright. Put the info in here. And this title has been changed. Now, the two most important ones here are three most important, the document title, the description, and I'm going to give a warning here. Do not fill your description with a bunch of keywords. You can fill your title and your subtitle with a bunch of keywords, as I have. That's fine. But don't use these sections for something other than what they were designed for. Use them as you're supposed to, because even if it works today, eventually Google will find a way to figure that out. Now your keywords, that's where you put your keywords. Second Amendment, personal defense, right to bear arms, gun laws, court cases, self-defense, Marlowe, Barksdale, Bill of Rights, constitutions, gun. Create it here. Yep. And the way we get the file out is we go in here to export, save for web. So now we got our preview. And it's a good idea. So this is showing us what it looks like now as an .ai file, what it will look like as a JPEG, how big it is, the file size, and we know from our Amazon page that the file must be less than 50 megabytes and that it should be a minimum of 72 dots per inch. Ours is nowhere close to 50 megabytes as a JPEG. It's 3 megabytes. So we want to always make sure we're using the maximum quality, because a JPEG file is what's known as a lossy file. That means when it gets saved, moved around, pushed, sometimes it distorts and abbreviates a little bit of the information to make the file size smaller. So we always want to make sure there is and that process is known as compression. We want to make sure there's the least amount of compression going on as possible. So that is the maximum quality. You see, if we put it on low, it's only 10% quality, but we want maximum. Art optimize. We can choose text type or art optimize. Doesn't really matter in this case. And yeah, so we click save. I'm not going to do it because I already have the file on my computer. Notice when we're exporting, save for web, when we're exporting the audiobook cover, however, we know that number one, there are no maximum file size requirements. Number two, that ACX accepts alternate file types that we might be interested in, other than JPEG. Specifically, ACX accepts PNG files. PNG files are not lossy. They are lossless. So if they do get compressed, they're like those khakis. Wrinkle-free. So we have here, you know, the highest possible. Honestly, even a JPEG in this case is probably going to be okay, but we have the highest possible amount of, you know. And it's always a good idea to hop in here and just look around your file. How does it look? Look for any little oddities. How does the blood look? It looks like blood. Always make sure your blood looks like blood. That trigger looks like a trigger. That's not a racial slur. All right. So we got this. And once we have our, however we create our files, once we're done, go over to our, here's our book here, Marlowe Barksdale, Personal Defense. We'll log in. Now, when you're logged into the details of a book, so we went to our bookshelf, we found our book. There's 3 pages to your book details. The Kindle ebook details page, the Kindle ebook content page, which is where the cover file goes, and the Kindle ebook pricing page. You must complete all 3 pages. And then on the 3rd page, the pricing page, you must click the submit button for any of your saved content to actually be published. So we'll go to the content page, save and continue from the first page. And here we'll go into the cover file, upload our cover. Now, this can take a few minutes. I always like to wait until it's totally done processing. First, it'll say your file has been accepted. Then it will begin to process the file. So there's 2 stages of acceptance that these little message windows provide you. I like to wait until, as you can see, it's still processing. Even though it was uploaded, it's still processing. I like to wait until both are done. Call me OCD. But I'm going to tell you why I like that. I've found many times in my career as a writer, I'd say no less than 1 million or 1.3 million times, I come in here and I edit my book details or I edit my content, and I somehow forget to go click save and continue, go to the 3rd page, the pricing page, and then click submit for pre-order or submit for publishing at the bottom. And oftentimes, even when I do that, there's another error that can come up on the pricing page. So sometimes I've found if it's still saving and processing my data, and then I go to the pricing page and click publish, it will say, as soon as we finish processing your file, then we will publish it. But sometimes, like it says here, these random errors occur. So then I walk away from the computer and I'm expecting it to be publishing my content. And an error occurs with the processing, so it's unable to complete the action. And I had walked away and forgot about it. So then a few days later, I say, why hasn't my book details changed? Why has not my cover changed to the one I uploaded? But I never completed the process. So I like to just wait it out. Then when I'm done, in this case, we'll go to the pricing page. You always have to, whoops. See, look, for some reason, my manuscript file, which was accepted just fine last time, now it has an error, even though it's already in the KDP system. And now I've done what has happened accidentally to me many times. Pre-order live with unpublished changes. So until I publish my changes on that third page, it will remain the way it is. And that essentially concludes our topic of ebook and audiobook cover creating.
Jeez, this tune upon fire. Jeez, you don't know.